Namaste, Namaskaram, Vanakkam, Swagatam. Welcome to this evening's session where we'll be focusing on yoga and the digestive system. It's a session that has been put together especially for members of Team 52. But as I can never limit myself to sharing only for a few people, I've opened it up to others who are interested in this topic. So let's begin with an invocation to the Guru Parampara. Om Tad Paramparaye Vidmahe Jnanalingeshwaraya Dhimahi Tanno Guru Prachodayate Om Yoga Maharshi Dr. Swami Geetananda Giri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. It's always a pleasure to be with all of you, especially my yoga family who shares my love for yoga so much. I will go straight into the screen share because I have prepared quite a few slides that I wanted to share with you today, because the last time I presented this topic was in 2018 at Kripalu when I was teaching the yoga therapy module for my dear Joseph LePage. And 3 years have passed, and when I looked at my slides, I said, there's so much more to be added, Ananda. So the last few days, I've been adding a few more slides, a few more concepts, because what we know is always going to be limited when compared to what we can know. And the more we realize it, the more we keep growing every moment, because every moment we learn something. We learn something more about the subject we are studying, but more importantly, we learn something about the subject who we should study, and that is our own self. The ultimate subject of study in yoga is our own self. The externalized subject, as in today's case, yoga and the digestive system, and it gets you all infused because everybody has something wrong with the digestive system. And so we all want to know something about it. Yoga and stress, everybody will join because everybody is stressed out. You say yoga and Kaivalya, you are lucky if you have 5 people join. And this is the modern world. So we have to accept it. That's the world we are in, and be in the world, but don't be of the world. So let me get straight to the sharing the screen. And so today, the official topic, yoga and the digestive system. I hope you can see my screen, and that is good. Offering my salutations to the Guru Parampara. We have invoked them, without whose blessings, nothing is possible. As I keep telling Ammaji, without your blessings, nothing is possible. So we invoke the blessings. I found this very beautiful cartoon, and I love these cartoon images because you can see how stuff goes in at the top into the mouth, mashed up by the teeth, coming down the esophagus, which is this pipe-like structure. And in the stomach, you can see all the acid being poured into it. And then how all the different chemicals from the liver, the pancreas, and the gallbladder. And this is your pancreas here. This is your liver, and this is your gallbladder, pouring all their enzymes, digestive enzymes, and all of it going through this big mashup through the large intestine and finally coming out the other end. I like this. It's a nice cartoon to go with what we are talking about. But where we start today is the top of the digestive system. And the top of the digestive system is our mouth. And we keep on forgetting when we talk about digestion, the role played by the oral cavity, this mouth, and the exocrine glands. Exocrine glands are glands that secrete the enzymes locally. Okay, so they have local action, whereas the endocrine glands are secreting globally. So endocrine glands are the multinational companies, and the exocrine glands are the local pharma markets. Okay, just to give you an idea. Exocrine glands, which are your salivary glands in the mouth. And these salivary glands, the parotid, the only time people know about it is when they get mumps and it gets swollen. The sublingual, under your tongue, Swamiji in step by step talks about Chalana Dohana, cleaning the tongue, cleaning the oral cavity, putting your hand in and massaging the base of the tongue. When you do that, all of these glands are getting activated. And the submandibular, which is under the mandible, this is your mandible maxilla. So under the mandible, under the tongue, you have these glands. And if in the morning you do this type of cleaning that Swamiji has suggested, you will start to actually see the opening of these glands, and you can start to perceive the secretions that come through them. The parotid comes into the upper part of the jaw, the other two and the lower part. Now, why are these important? These are important because the food you eat needs to be chewed. That is why you have 32 teeth. Not to make your smile look good for advertisements. Okay? I love Nilachal's smile. Well, all of you have beautiful smiles. Nilachal has an especially lovely smile there. The teeth are not just for smiling. The teeth are for chewing. And we need to chew. Now, there are some people who say you have 32 teeth, so you need to chew 32 times. Now, if you try chewing everything you eat 32 times, you would have no time to do anything else in your day. Okay, so, it's nice to have that idea, but at the same time, you need to be a bit practical at times. But we need to chew our food to such an extent that the solid becomes liquid. Swamiji used to say, drink your solids and chew your liquids. What it means is you chew your solid so much it becomes liquid, and you leave the liquid in your mouth long enough as if it were the solid going down slowly. Both are part of the mindful eating process. Chewing mindfully, where chewing can be a meditative activity. Because when you chew the food, you break the food down physically into multiple smaller components that these enzymes, your salivary enzymes, can work on. And what do? They are all alkaline. They are all alkaline. These enzymes are alkaline. And what they do is that they work on breaking down, especially the carbohydrates. And this is one of the biggest dangers of fast food, junk food. Is junk food, fast food by definition, you put in your mouth and goes down fast. That's why it's called fast food. You don't chew much and it just goes down. And what happens? It has gone through your oral apparatus so fast, you have not given a chance for these enzymes to act on it. And most of the junk food, fast food is carbohydrate based. And then suddenly all the carbohydrate goes into your stomach and you go into a sugar shock. Now that sugar shock from that heavy carbohydrate could have been broken down into pieces by pieces. It's like give the person bad news one bit after a little bit by bit, so that they can digest it better. Don't give it to them all, in one full dose and kill them with the bad news. Okay, junk food is bad food. Fast food is bad food. Now, at least if you chew it, if you spend time on it, you have given your enzymes time to work on it. And if you don't, all of this secretion is not going to have food to work on and is going to go down, and it has not worked on the food. It will go down into your stomach and start to interact with the acidic nature of your stomach and start to create further problems by not letting the acid work properly. See, if you had chewed your food, all these enzymes would have worked on the food, then the food comes to your stomach and it can interact properly. Now your food has come into the stomach, there is no interaction. All these enzymes are coming from your saliva into your stomach without interaction. And no wonder, even the beginning process of digestion has become a mess, off to a false start, as they say. You have taken off in the 100 meters dash in the Olympics, but the umpire has said it's a false start. You started moving even before the gun went off and you are disqualified. Like Usain Bolt in his last race got disqualified for jumping the gun. That is what's happening with your digestive system. Now, if you take time to chew the food, if these enzymes work on it, you have started off at a slow pace, like a good marathon runner. You have set a steady pace where you will not have any unnecessary tiredness and any other complications, and you can get through the race and come out the other end with the best possible outcome, optimal functioning and outcome. So your food has come from the first part, where it should start in your mouth with the chewing and your digestive enzymes. These are all alkaline, and they are all working on breaking down, especially your carbohydrates, which are a major component in our diet today. If you are in South India, it's all the white rice we eat. If you are in North India, it's all the wheat. And if you are in other countries, well, you know all the high carbohydrate food that most people are eating. Carbohydrates are a major component of our diet. Now, this travels to the second part. The second part is your stomach, where there's all this acid. Remember that cartoon with the acid being poured? This is the second part where it's acting. The alkaline was in your mouth. Your mouth is alkaline. Your stomach is acid. And between the mouth and the stomach lies the esophagus, which is a long passageway. The top of the esophagus is under your voluntary control. But after that, it is involuntary. So once you swallow the food and it starts moving down your esophagus, you cannot do anything about it. It's going to go all the way down to the stomach because it becomes involuntary. And this passageway should have all the alkaline juices from your mouth so that the acid in the stomach doesn't erode the esophagus. The esophagus is the tube connecting your mouth to the stomach. The stomach has all this acid. Now, if you are not careful, all this acid is going to come into your esophagus, causing esophagitis. Esophagitis, and there is a special condition, Barrett's, B-A-R-E-T-T-S, Barrett's esophagitis, which is a pre-cancerous condition, which then, if you do not control, becomes a cancer of the esophagus and one of the toughest cancers to deal with. It's in a place where you are going to have havoc with your whole system. Where does it start? All the acid, excess acid from the stomach coming up, not getting neutralized properly because you have not been chewing. You have been gulping your food down, not getting neutralized. And the acid comes at a different time. The alkaline juices come at another time. And so what is happening? It is blowing hot and cold. And in this process, this extreme change from acidic to alkaline, acidic to alkaline, acidic to alkaline, hot, cold, the esophageal tissue, the inner lining, starts to become precancerous and you end up with cancer of the esophagus. If only we were to chew the food properly, if the alkaline juices in the mouth were to mix properly with the food, and bit by bit it were to come down through the esophagus, we would avoid this problem. Now it has come to the stomach. Now here, all the stomach is filled with acid. And the acid in the stomach is so much, if you were to put it on your skin, you would have a terrible degree of burn. If that stomach acid were put on your skin, you would get burned. You would suffer a burn. It's so acidic. But the membranes, the inner membranes of your stomach, the mucosa, is so well developed that it keeps on managing it, and the mucosa keeps on growing back, so that it can withstand the acidity. But then the mucosa also is human after all. How much can it do? It keeps on doing its best, but you are not neutralizing with the alkaline juices. You are not eating properly and chewing properly. You are putting all the extra spices and oil in your food. You are having so much of stress, and your mucosa starts to give up. And this is where your body acid, stomach acid, starts to eat your own stomach. And when people ask you the question, what's eating you? You are eating yourself. The acid in your stomach is burning through your stomach, and it becomes a peptic ulcer, a duodenal ulcer, a gastric ulcer. And this ulceration is happening because this normal mucosa would prevent it. You are not letting the normal mucosa grow. Unhealthy eating habits, irregular food. You know, people who have most of the ulcers are because people don't eat regularly. They miss a meal and then they eat, and it's erratic. And so the mucosa never knows when it needs to do its job. It's like, it says, you were supposed to eat at 8 o'clock. And, if you had eaten at 8 o'clock, I've done my job. I was waiting till 12 o'clock. You didn't eat. And then suddenly you decided to eat. And now I don't know what to do. There's so much of acid. What you have done is you have just messed up the whole rhythm of the mucosa, how it would deal with what's happening. On top of that, the stress increases the acidity. Now people say, why do you need the acid in your stomach? Well, the acid is there to help kill off all the unnecessary microbes that come in your food. They kill off the microbes. The second thing is, there are certain enzymes that are in precursor form. They are not in the ready-made form. They are in the precursor form. For example, pepsinogen. Pepsinogen, when the acid reacts with pepsinogen, it becomes pepsin and it starts to work on the food. So the acid is required to convert a precursor of the enzyme into the enzyme so that it can work. And this is why it is required. So one danger we have is that many people start to teach some of the Shatkarmas. And I'll be talking about the Shatkarmas later. The cleansing practices of Hatha Yoga, especially of cleaning the upper GIT through what is called Dauti. And they do the Vaman Dauti or Kunjal Kriya, where you drink lukewarm saline and then you vomit it up. A very beautiful practice, a good practice. But then you overdo it, and what happens is you start to push out all the acid that is in your stomach, and your stomach starts to say something is wrong. And if you are not careful, either it will secrete more acid and go into hyperchlorohydria, or it goes into achlorohydria, where there is not enough acid in the stomach. And not enough acid in the stomach, achlorohydria, is a potential risk factor for cancer of the stomach. So what I'm saying is, there is a place for everything. All the Shatkarmas must be done in a proper way, under the proper guidance. Not just somebody heard about it and people get into these obsessive compulsive ideas, and they start doing it every day for 365 days. You have just messed up your whole natural pattern. You have messed up your whole natural pattern. Yoga is all about moderation. Yukta, as the Bhagavad Gita teaches us, moderation. When everything is in moderation, you have no suffering. When you are immoderate, you suffer. This is the message of the Bhagavad Gita. If you have a lot of kapha dosha, lot of mucus, please do the shatkarmas. But if you don't have the kapha dosha and you are doing the shatkarmas to eliminate kapha, you start to degrade your kapha, which is your mucous membrane. The mucous membrane of your stomach is kapha, and it is the good kapha. And you start to erode it if you are not careful. This is why the guidance of an acharya is required for these practices. Do not do them watching a video on YouTube. But today, YouTube has become a guru, Google has become a guru, Wikipedia has become a guru, self-taught, self-made, and then they blame yoga. Oh, I did yoga and now I have cancer of the stomach. Yes, for 10 years, what have you been doing? Every day you have been doing Pamandauti because someone said it's good for you. Now you don't do it every day for 10 years. You will have gastric cancer. I give you that guarantee. Because you have altered the internal homeostatic internal milieu, the internal environment. And we are going to come to that environment soon. So the stomach has the acid, and the stomach is like, one of those concrete cement mortar mixers. You put in all the stones and the cement and it goes round and round and out comes the concrete you can pour. Well, that is what the stomach is doing with all your food. And if you've digested broken the food down, it's all going through, getting all mixed and mashed up. And then it comes to the next part, which is your duodenum. The duodenum is the most important part of your digestive system. And I'm going to talk about that in a bit more detail in a few minutes. Because your stomach, it continues into this part, which is the duodenum. The duodenum is the first part of your small intestine. And the duodenum is right adjacent to the stomach. So you have the pyloric end of the stomach. This pyloric end of the stomach is now going into the duodenum. There is a very nice sphincter there. The duodenal sphincter or pyloric sphincter, because it wants stuff to come from the stomach to the duodenum, but doesn't want things to come from duodenum back to the stomach. It is a one-way valve. You have these valves in your whole system. Because in the duodenum, suddenly now you have come into another place, which is an alkaline milieu. Remember, your mouth was alkaline, your stomach was acidic, duodenum is alkaline again. What a beautiful change is there. These changes of the pH are just happening at each level of the digestive system. And it is into this duodenum that all the important enzymes that contribute to digestion are happening. So the enzymes from the pancreas, the bile from the liver, they all come into the what is called the second part of the duodenum, the C-shaped duodenum. I'll show a close-up diagram soon. Yeah, this is a good one here. Here you can see the second part of the duodenum. So where the pancreatic duct, you can see it is opening, the sphincter of OD, and the biliary duct, common biliary duct is also opening there. So this second part of the duodenum is the most important component to healthy digestion. In yoga and Ayurveda, we talk about the fire of digestion being called Jatara Agni. The Jatara Agni for me is this region, the second part of the duodenum, where the enzymes are coming from the pancreas and the bile is coming from the liver through the gallbladder and common biliary duct, and it starts to act on this mashed up food. And this is actually where the process of digestion as such starts. Because the word digestion means to break down. This is where the breakdown of the complex molecules occurs into smaller molecules. For example, carbohydrate will be broken down into monosaccharides. The polysaccharide becomes disaccharide, trisaccharide, and becomes monosaccharide. Glucose is a good example of a monosaccharide. You then have your fats, which are broken down to fatty acids. The proteins are broken down to amino acids. And all of this breakdown is dependent on the enzymatic action in the second part of the duodenum. This is why I say it is the most important part for your digestion, because doesn't matter what you ate, for it to be broken down into its smallest molecule, the second part of the duodenum should be working properly. And this is a part that gets blocked up by incrustations. And this is another seat for cancer. This is another important seat where cancer comes in, leading to obstructive jaundice. And this is one of the most important areas that is cleansed when we do the practice of Shankar Prakshalana, which is the cleansing of the bowel. There is the first practice we do where it opens the pyloric sphincter. The first practice in the Shankar opens the pyloric sphincter, and the water that has been filled into the stomach gushes like a pump opening up, a dam opening up into the duodenum, cleaning up the incrustations. This is what happens. Each of the practices happens in this way. The first practice opens, the second part practice gushes the water, the third part moves the water through the intestine, the fourth part of the Shankar prepares you to evacuate the water. 4 steps in the Shankar. First one, to open the pyloric sphincter. That is why we do a certain mudra here. We open a mudra in the Shankar so that the pyloric sphincter can open. Then we do the movement so that the water goes. It's like you get the water and throw the bucket of water, throw the bucket of water, throw the bucket of water. And that time, what is happening? This part of your duodenum is getting cleansed. Any adhesions, any incrustations, any dried up matter here that is blocking the digestive process can be cleaned, and the light can shine bright. Shankar Prakshalana. That light will shine through your whole digestive system. So coming back, we had the second part of the duodenum. Now after that, whatever you have now put into your mouth has got mixed into what is called chyme, C-H-Y-M-E, chyme. Now this chyme has all the enzymes act on it, and now it starts its long journey through the small intestine. The name of the small intestine makes you think it is very small. No, it is very small but very long. Okay, it is small but long. And an average of 18 feet. You heard me right. It's approximately 3 times your height, if not more. Imagine your small bowel, the small intestine, is more than 3 times your height. That's how long it is. And it's all packed into that abdominal area. Whenever we do abdominal surgeries in the hospital, they have a special nurse in abdominal surgeries whose job, because the moment you cut open the abdomen, all the intestines just come out and they fill the whole table. 18 feet. It's huge. It's just going to be coming out and filling the whole table. So you have one nurse in the operation theater whose job is to keep on patting it with saline so that it doesn't get dried and dehydrated. You don't want it dehydrated. To just take care of your small intestine, you have one nurse. That is her complete duty during the surgery, is to make sure your small intestines are cared for in a loving manner. And you know, the toughest part of surgery is not cutting in and cutting things out. The toughest part is repacking this 18 feet of small intestine back and suturing up your abdomen. Because it's like your travel suitcases. You know, you pack all your clothes into your suitcase and go on a trip. And on the way back from the trip, you don't know why you have all these clothes that just don't fit into that same suitcase. So you sort of push them in, close it and stand on it and jump on it. Well, I won't say we jump on people's stomach, abdomen in OTs, but it's close to that. In order to get all that 18 feet of intestine back into its place, you often have to virtually stand on the person, okay? It's so huge. Why is it so huge? Because this is the part in your digestive system where the food which has been broken down has been mixed with the enzymes. Now through the enzymatic action will start to be digested fully and absorbed. The whole process of absorption occurs in the small intestine. So if the small intestine is not functioning properly, you will end up with what is called malabsorption syndrome. Because you cannot absorb anything because it is the small intestine. Now, if you look at the small intestine, it is very funny because it has finger-like projections into it. It's not just a long tube. It's finger-like projections that enhance its surface area multifold. So such a wide surface area, when your chyme mixed with all the enzymes is moving through it, the food, the important nutrients, now the monosaccharides, the fatty acids, the amino acids, those small molecules can be absorbed and take it in. At the end of the small intestine, the jejunum and ileum are the main parts where this occurs. So if somebody ever asks you a quiz, okay, the quiz question is, where is your pizza absorbed in your digestive system? Without blinking, you can just say, my small intestine. If they say any further details, my jejunum is the best guess. Because the jejunum is where 90% of all your food is going to be absorbed. The duodenum, remember, is where the mixing is occurring of the enzymes, the Jatara Agni. It is the jejunum where the maximum absorption occurs, and then a few things are absorbed in the ileum. And why is the ileum important? Well, vitamin B12, folic acid. The ileum is vitamin B12, folic acid area. And if that area is not working properly, you become folic acid deficient. This is the area where fish tapeworms which come from eating too much of fish, that tapeworm goes and it settles into the ileum and then leads to people having vitamin deficiencies. The ileum is that part where the vitamin deficiency issue starts to come. Jejunum is where the maximum absorption is occurring. So the food has come in, it's been acted on by the enzymes, your absorption has occurred, and now you basically have the waste matter which is in a liquid state. This comes into the large intestine. This large intestine, which is not so long, but it is huge. So it is wider, so it's called large intestine. And this large intestine, the first part here is going up. So it's called the ascending colon. This part goes across, it's called transverse colon. This part comes down, is called descending colon. So ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, and then this area is an S-shaped area. So it's called sigmoid colon, like a S-shaped. And then comes the rectum and the anus. Now, what is the importance of the large intestine? The large intestine is important because the water is reabsorbed from all that potential stool, which is in liquid form. The water is reabsorbed at this point, and the stool is made solid. The solidification of your excreta, the stool, is possible because of the large intestine. So the large intestine absorbs the water so that you can have the water and you don't lose it through the bowels. So if your large intestine is not healthy, your stools are going to be losing fluids and there will be constant loose motion and you'll be losing water and getting dehydrated. Okay, so these are different parts of your digestive system. Your mouth, the oral cavity where you are supposed to chew so that the enzymes, the salivary gland enzymes can work on it, come down through the esophagus, come down to the stomach where the acid is there and it's all churned up, sent into the duodenum where the enzymes start to act on it, from the pancreas, the gallbladder, the liver, then comes through the small intestine, that long journey where absorption of food can occur, then coming through the large intestine where the water can be reabsorbed, solidifying the stool, and then as it fills your rectum, at one point, a reflex is sent to you that says, well, I need to go to the toilet, excuse me. And then you go and you evacuate. So it is the rectum, when it is filled, a reflex goes saying that you need to evacuate. A very beautiful process that is going from the mouth to the anal region and propelled by movements called peristalsis. Peristaltic movements enable the flow to go in the normal way, mouth to anus. Sometimes when there are different issues in the abdominal area, anti-peristalsis starts to happen and things start to come out the other way, and that is not healthy. Now, one of the most important messages I want to give you is that all the traditional methods of healing stress the importance of a healthy digestive system. And in fact, they go to the extent of saying, if your digestive system is not healthy, you cannot be healthy. Because if you are not evacuating in a proper way regularly, there's going to be a buildup of the toxins that then enter your system and you become toxic. And 3 out of the 6 cleansing practices in yoga are working on the digestive system so that it will be healthy. And this is why it is very important when we come to the dietary aspects to think about this. So if you look at the whole digestive system, you can think of it as a long passage, the alimentary canal, and all this stuff is coming here at one end, making this journey, the esophagus, coming down through here, the stomach, coming through, your pancreas, point of interest, the pancreas, the small intestines, coming through all the small intestines. Pay toll, nutrients, please. Remember, the nutrients are the ileum, I was telling you here. And then the appendix here, we'll talk about later. Then the large intestine, still the large intestine. And then it says, thank you for your nutrients, and exit. Okay, this is a very nice way to look at it. So you can think of the digestive system as a long passageway. Starts at your mouth, ends at the anus, and it is your digestive tract, your alimentary canal, gastrointestinal tract. But then you add the salivary glands, you add the pancreas, and you add the liver, and then suddenly you have the whole digestive system. So the sequence here, ingestion, you are putting the food into your system. The second part is digestion. What digestion means here is breakdown. To digest means to break down into smaller particles. When we get new information, for example, what I'm saying today may be new information for some of you. You have to take that information, break it down into its component parts. Once you break it down into your component parts, you are digesting the information. You then have to absorb it. So the absorption has to occur. Remember, carbohydrates break down to monosaccharides like glucose. Fat breaks down to fatty acids, triglycerides. And the proteins break down to amino acids, and they can be absorbed. Because to absorb, they need to be small molecules. You have to give small bits of information to people. This is why when you teach, make sure that you make it simple. A good teacher will simplify the teaching so that they can be readily absorbed by the student. People who make it complicated don't know the subject. It's as simple as that. And we have a lot of that in the world today. And the names are usually prefixed with doctor and professor. And they make it so complicated. I'm like, why do you do this? People need to, you need to simplify it. You need to simplify the molecules. You cannot absorb a polysaccharide. It has to be broken down to a monosaccharide. You cannot absorb the fat. It has to become a fatty acid. The protein has to become amino acid for you to absorb it. Now, inside your system, what happens? Now, those single unit molecules are now assimilated, and you start to create new molecules in your body. So the food that you have absorbed, the nutrients you have absorbed, now become building blocks for you to build new tissue in your body. And that which is not nourishing you is going to be eliminated next time you evacuate, thanks to that reflex from your rectum. And if you don't evacuate it, there's going to be a backup. This is why constipation is considered one of the beginning stages of most diseases. Because when you are constipated, you are not clearing the pipeway. And if the pipeway is not cleaned, it's going to stagnate. And stagnation breeds disease. Remember this and underline it. Stagnation breeds disease. Stagnant stools breed disease. Stagnant blood breeds disease. Stagnant water breeds mosquitoes and disease. Stagnant food breeds flies and disease. Stagnant thoughts breeds mental disease. Stagnancy at any level, stagnant emotions breed emotional diseases. There has to be dynamism, there has to be change, there has to be transformation. And this is why there has to be proper elimination done. This is why in yoga, the emphasis on practices like the Shankar. And when the students do the 6 months here, that is one of the first things they do at the end of the first month. One of the things they do at the end of the first month. And it's astonishing. Astonishing what comes out the other end. Always astonishing. And we have had so many students who come in saying, my whole life I have been constipated. I cannot remember when I have not been constipated. And after doing the Shankar, well, for the rest of the life, they don't have to worry about it. The Shankar is an amazing cleanser of this system. It has to be done under proper guidance, but it's a beautiful practice. The Shankar is not part of the traditional cleansing techniques, the 6 Shat Karmas or Shat Kriyas, but it's part of the 108 Malashodhana Karma. The 108 cleansing practices, it's part of it, but it has the benefit of all 3. Dauti, which cleans the upper part of your digestive tract. Nauli, that works on the intestine. Remember that 18 feet of intestine? When you do the Nauli, you are just giving a beautiful massage and really toning up the intestines. And then you do Basti and you eliminate it out the rectal area. 3 Shatkarmas are coming in one. Shankar Prachalana. A very beautiful practice. And a practice which, when it is done properly, can really reset your whole digestive system. So remember the second part of the duodenum, that is where your Jatara Agni is. That is the prime focus of your Samana Vayu. There is an energy called Samana Vayu. One of the Prana Vayus called Samana is related to this digestive system, and this is where it works. I'm giving you an anatomical location where this energy comes into you and works. Because when this area is healthy, the food that has come in will interact with the enzymes of digestion in the appropriate healthy manner. Because if the enzymes are not working here, the food that you put in will come out the other end the same. If you eat a carrot salad, and after a few hours, carrots come out the other end, definitely something's wrong with you. What comes out the other end should not look like what you put in. Okay, a very simple formula. The other day in our lesson, I was saying, watch your stools. And of course, someone said, what about smelling them? Smell them also, because smell can also tell you a lot. Are things rotting in you? If they are rotting in you, you're going to get that putrefied smell like a dead body. And someone asked me about that the other day. You will get that if it's putrefied in you, putrefaction. If you have been taking things that have a lot of sulfur, You are going to smell like a chemistry lab, okay? You'll smell like a chemistry lab with hydrogen sulfide. You know hydrogen sulfide? That is a very typical uh, smell which you can never forget once you have been in a chemistry lab where they make hydrogen sulfide, rotten egg smell. Huh? When you start to observe your stools, are they very liquid? If they are very liquid, there's something wrong with your large intestine. If they are very solid, there's something wrong with your small intestine. Because they should not be totally solid. It means that you are dehydrated. And because you are dehydrated, the body is taking all the water out of the stool in order to maintain your hydration status. Means drink more water. One of the best ways to deal with hydration is increase your water intake. Increase your water intake. Increase your fiber intake. Again, fast food, junk food. What is the most important component? Zero. Zero nutrition, all calories. All calories. And I'm going to tell you in a few moments a few of those things also. So you come to the small intestine and look at that small intestine. Can you see these villi? It is lined by these villi, which are like finger-like projections. And this finger-like projections that come into it enhance the surface area. So you don't just have 18 feet of small intestine. Along with the 18 feet of small intestine, you have all these villi that are multiplying the surface area in an exponential manner so that the surface area available for the food to interact with the mucosa. Food has to interact. Food now, of course, it's not food anymore. It's all the small particles. Those particles have to interact with the mucosa as they're passing, and that interaction should be over such a surface area they can be absorbed. So the surface area, imagine a couple of football fields, soccer fields. Imagine a couple of soccer fields. That's the type of surface area you are potentially having in your digestive tract. Same thing with your lungs. The surface area on your lungs is like a couple of soccer fields. That's the surface area. Why so much surface area? Nature wants to give you the best opportunity for every nutrient molecule to get absorbed. Because if the surface area is less, things are going to pass by and not get a chance to be absorbed. You have to slow down the system, increase the surface area, so it has to travel over a larger distance. That is why 18 feet. Larger. Imagine you have a football field and you have a cup of water at one end and you are sprinkling the water as you go across the football field. Imagine how soon that water will get evaporated into that football field. Now imagine you don't have a football field. You just have your working table and you have that same amount of water. That water is not going to get absorbed. It's going to stagnate. This is why the surface area is so important. And what happens is all the junk food, all the dehydration, and all junk food is dehydrated. Processed food is dehydrated. Anything that has a shelf life of more than 1 week. You take an apple, keep it for 1 week, most probably it will not be good after 1 week, okay? You take a vegetable after 1 week, I'm saying putting it outside, not in your refrigerator. Keep anything natural outside for 1 week, it's going to decompose. And you have things in the shops that have an expiry date 2 years later. 2 years. I don't have to tell you what's in that, okay? Totally dehydrated stuff that when it gets into your system will go and block all. See all those villi will get blocked. And so instead of having this huge surface area, you end up with a straight pipe. And the food going through it has no chance of getting absorbed. No wonder we have problems. People say, I'm eating all this healthy food. Yes, but the problem is you are not absorbing the healthy nutrition. It's going out the other end. And the bacteria in your, toilet sump, they are healthy because they get all the nutrition, not you. put it to the garden will grow well because all the nutrition has gone out the other end. It's not got absorbed. Not got absorbed. This is why when you do the Shankar, you are cleansing. You are cleansing and the water is jetting through your system. It's not just drinking water, okay? You put the water in and you do these practices. You are jetting the water at high speed, like a high-speed hose pipe to clean your car and clean all the dirt off the bottom of your car. You don't take a cup of water and just put it and say, yeah, my car is going to be clean. You will not clean nothing that way. You take a jet pipe of water, right? The same thing happens in Shankar. It jet cleans all the incrustations, all the adhesions. And suddenly after the Shankar, what happens? Your whole digestive system is now open. Now the message at that point is, after that, be careful what you eat. Because it's like you have all this raw surface that is opened. So don't go out and again have junk food and destroy it. You know, in the ashram, after the Shankar is done for us as part of a 5-day ritual. So the first day, the students only have fruits. The second, third, and fourth day, they only take water. It's a water fast. And the fifth day is again fruit. So you have fruit fast, 1 day, 3 days of water fast, and then fruit fast. So it's a 5-day sadhana. The Shankar is done on the second day. So the fruit is the first day. Second day is Shankar. The third day, you don't do anything. Of course, you're doing all your regular classes. You cannot say, oh, I'm fasting. No, you have to come to all the classes and do all the practices. No sleeping in bed while you're fasting. Okay, the regular practice in the ashram, you have to keep everything going. No kid handling of anybody. That's never been this system here. So the second day is Shankar. The third day, no special practice. The fourth day, we do an enema, which is the basti. And you would say, okay, you know, I had fruit on day 1. I did the Shankar, cleaned out everything. The next day I had nothing. Nothing's going to come out. And after the enema, everybody comes back with their eyes, you know, popping out of their eye sockets. And they're like, how was all that stuff still in me? It's astonishing what is still stuck in people after even that. I tell you, the load of rubbish that is sticking in our intestinal tract is way beyond what we can comprehend. And this is why a regular cleansing of this is so important. You know, if you look at this diagram, it's a very nice diagram because they have talked about how the salivary amylase, the pancreatic amylase, they are working and the food here is coming through the esophagus, and how here that food is being acted upon by pepsin, trypsin, chymotrypsin. These are all the enzymes, the peptidase, the starch, you know, all this is working, being broken down. Here now they are breaking down into disaccharides and then monosaccharides. There are the proteins, the amino acids, and the water that is also coming through here. Similarly, then when it comes, you can see here, if you look back, this is where all the breakdown has occurred. This part is the breakdown. Now, look at the small intestine. Can you see this whole small intestine? This is where all the absorption is occurring. All the absorption is occurring here. And in the large intestine, what is being absorbed? It is the water. It is the water being reabsorbed in the large intestine. So here the breakdown from the stomach, and here in the duodenum, all the fats, the fatty acids, all the breakdown. And if you look at the small intestine, the maltase, sucrase, the lactase, they are working on converting disaccharides to monosaccharides and all. And the large intestine, the undigested food entering it, where water and salt are reabsorbed and it can go out. This is showing you a very beautiful diagram of how multiple aspects are occurring. Now, just for fun, I will tell you a few things. When you drink water, water starts to get absorbed right from your stomach itself. And throughout your digestive system, water will get absorbed. That is why water is actually a very, very important aspect of diet. When you talk about diet, never forget the importance of clean water. The second thing that gets absorbed from the stomach directly is alcohol. And this is the problem, when people get addicted to alcohol, the alcohol is getting absorbed from the stomach directly. And so what is happening is that a sense of satiety sets in. They don't want to eat. They don't want to eat because they already have a sense of being full. And so they end up not eating. So they don't eat they need. And alcohol itself doesn't have nutrients, it just has sugar. And that is why the worst thing a diabetic can do is drink, because they're just going to worsen their diabetes. And it goes straight in from the stomach. Now, the other important thing is iron in your diet, because iron is important for hemoglobin, for your RBCs, so that your oxygen can be carried. Iron is absorbed in the duodenum. This is another important one to keep in mind. So alcohol, water in the stomach, iron in the duodenum. Most of the stuff in the jejunum and the folic acid, B12, etc., is your ileum, the last part. And then the water in the large intestine. This is just to give you an overview of this process. We talked a lot about the pancreas and its enzymes. The pancreas is a very special gland because there are two parts of the pancreas. There is the exocrine and the endocrine. So the exocrine, which acts locally, is part of your digestive system. The endocrine, which acts globally, is part of your endocrine system. And so the pancreas is both part of the exocrine and the endocrine system. So both part of your digestive system and your endocrine system. Later on, we'll see that there is a very special connection that has been missed till now in this regard. The insulin, glucagon, these are part of the endocrine pancreas. They work on the sugar metabolism, glucose metabolism. But then you have the enzymes that work on fat, lipase, amylase that works on the starch, protease that works on protein. So protein, fat, and carbohydrate, all this metabolism, the digestion depends on the pancreas being healthy, which is why so many practices in yoga work on trying to enhance this area. All your twisting postures are very useful here. Postures that compress and relax the abdomen are very useful here to declog this system. Another very beautiful diagram that I wanted to share here is of the liver, this huge organ. The liver is the largest internal organ of the human body. The liver is the largest internal organ. The largest external one is the skin. We often forget the skin itself is an organ. The largest external organ is the skin. The largest internal organ is your liver. And this liver is so important. And in the liver, the bile, which helps us in digesting the fat, is produced. It is concentrated in the gallbladder, and then it comes into the second part of the duodenum, the second part of the duodenum, along with the secretions from the pancreas. And this is why this part, the second part, they have labeled it first part. This is actually the second part of the duodenum where this occurs. The pancreatic duct and the common biliary duct. Both of them come into that second part of the duodenum, which is the area which is most important for the enzymatic action. Why is the liver important? Well, detoxification, drugs, alcohol, fatty acids, steroid hormones, ammonia, environmental toxins and allergens. You want to detoxify yourself, get your liver working properly. And Swamiji has given those beautiful practices of the Pavana Mukta series, as well as coming into the Sarvangasana, the shoulder stand, and doing the practices with the single leg and double leg, coming down and compressing. Metabolism, it converts the T4 to T3. The thyroid hormones are made active. Detoxification of fat. It works against the viruses and pathogens. Maintains the immune system in the hepatic and portal system of the blood. Produces cholesterol, which is an important precursor to the sex hormones and vitamin D. Protein synthesis, blood clotting. If your liver is not working properly, you will not have proper clotting mechanisms. So the liver should work properly. Cholesterol transport, immune function, oncotic pressure, the albumin that helps the proper pressure to be maintained in your body fluids. Copper bioavailability. This is why there are conditions of the liver where the person ends up with copper deficiencies. It stores micronutrients, copper, zinc, magnesium, iron, the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, K, as well as your B12. It stores the glycogen so that when you need excess, more sugar, it can be broken down, and produces bile for digestion, and is also an antimicrobial for your whole digestive system. Imagine the role your liver is playing. You know, when people talk about digestive system, often they leave this out. They just say, oh, bile is produced in the liver. I said, no, you need to realize the liver is so important. How can your liver be healthy? Pavana Mukta Asanas are an excellent series of practices. All your abdominal breathing, diaphragmatic breathing is excellent for the liver health. Working in practices where you hold yourself tight, the Utkatasana, where you hug yourself in a squatting position. These are all amazing practices. I'll mention some practices later. I'm just putting the foundation for it now. And we often forget that it's all interrelated. Everything is interrelated. The food, water coming into your digestive system, coming into your circulatory system, the endocrine system, the body, the immune system, the excretory system, respiratory system, all of these systems are interconnected. But you know what happened is we started something called specialization. And then we have super specialization and sub-super specialization. And we started to think everything is separate. And this is why the importance of a healthy digestive system for health of all the systems. Because if your digestive system is not healthy, all the other systems are going to be affected. They are all interconnected, which is why, again, going back to the ancient wisdom, disease coming through the digestive system. When we talk of the psychosomatic disorders in yoga, the Adija Vyadi, they start in the psyche. They come into the body by alterations of the digestive function. Either your digestion is lower than normal, higher than normal, or altered. I'm going to explain that in a few moments also. But before that, I wanted to share this, the gut-brain axis. Because, you know, when I talked about digestive system in Kripalu a few years ago, I never talked about this. Because this was just sort of becoming, you know, common knowledge. And now you cannot talk about the digestive system without this. Because the digestive system, without its connection to the brain, is only half the story. Because the spinal cord and spinal nerves are sending signals from the brain to the digestive system and through the vagus. When in doubt in yoga, guess vagus. The vagus is always your yogic cranial nerve. Whenever you want to know how something happens in yoga, if they say which of the nerves is the reason behind it, the best guess, 99.99 times out of 100 is vagus. It's like, and it's the vagabond, because it starts up in the brain, goes all the way down into the lower part of your abdominal area, supplying each and everything you can think of. So no wonder the vagus comes in, and through the vagus, the influence of the gut onto the brain. And it's not just the gut on the brain. we are going to talk about the next common, very, very popular topic, which is the biome. Because again, you cannot talk about the digestive system today without talking of the biome. You have to talk about the gut-brain axis. You have to talk about the biome, otherwise it's incomplete. How beautiful that just in the last decade, these concepts have come alive. You know, when I was studying medicine, we had no idea about this, okay? They were starting to say there's something called a brain in your gut. They were starting to say it. They never talked about microbiome. The first time I heard it was about 5 years ago with a researcher in my hospital who said we should do some research on it. That's the first time I heard about it. And that's why I'm happy to share it with all of you. What is this gut-brain axis? Well, of course, everybody has to think of stress, because the moment you think of stress, you understand how you are related to it. Because we are all stressed out, okay? So if I say, oh, stress does it, you say, oh, yeah, I better listen to this. If I say, you know, this happens in people who are spiritually evolved, you say, who cares? But I say, this is stress, everybody is immediately all ears, all eyes, and all skin pores are open. The brain getting affected with the microbiota. These are the microbes that are there. And you are going to hear me say that they outnumber us 10 to 1. The microbes outnumber us 10 to 1. It's a good lesson in humility. So here you have the microbiota, you have the gut and the brain. So the gut-brain axis and the brain and microbiota through neuroendocrine immune mediators. I just want to, at this point, remind you, the pancreas, no one's bringing this into the equation till now. But the pancreas is both exocrine and endocrine, fits into the digestive system and the endocrine system. I don't know why nobody is yet understanding that maybe it is the pancreas that is the key in this communication. We know the communication, but we have left the pancreas out of it. We are always only talking about the thyroid, the adrenals, and your gonads. It's interesting. We have just left the pancreas out of it as if, you know, it has nothing to do with it. It's very weird when you think about it. Your psychological and behavioral issues, cognitive deficits, autism, loneliness. I think this is another issue that the pandemic is going to bring out. So many people who are feeling lonely. Coming here through the autonomic nervous system. Guess the nerve? Vagus. Yes, you are right. All the other nerves that are there, the enteric nervous system, the HPA axis, always this will come in. Hypothalamo pituitary adrenal axis comes into every time you talk of psychosomatics, every time you talk about Adija Vyadhi, well, it comes in. It's part and parcel of it. The neuroendocrine and neuroimmune systems. And where does this start? Well, why did Indian culture say start early? Why did they say have something called Garbha Sanskar, which means the proper cultural ethos in which the mother grows the baby within her? Garbha Sanskar, creating a sanskar while the baby is developing in the mother's womb. Why? You see here, prenatal stage, modification of maternal gut homeostasis and the brain-gut axis, modification of fetal programming happening while the baby is still intrauterine. This is why start teaching yoga to kids, please. Especially young girls. Because seriously, you will alter the future of humanity. When they grow up, they get married and they have children. And if they carry the yoga into their life, you have just altered the future of humanity much better than all the Terminator movies and their ideas of altering, you know, changing history or Back to the Future and all that. You can do a much better job by teaching young children, especially young girls, get them into yoga, get them into yoga. The neonatal stage, stress, antibiotics, all the residues, the neonate gut maturation, microbiota settlement, and all of that. In Indian culture, how did you deal with this? Well, there were ceremonies done. There were procedures done. And you know, something that everybody laughs at. The 5 elements that come out of the cow. Panchagavya was such an important aspect of Indian culture that when the mother's pregnant, as part of the pregnancy ceremony, she is given a mixture that comes from the cow that includes the milk, the curd, the ghee, the urine, and the cow dung. Now, cow dung, yes. Nowadays, people are taking fecal implants. You heard me right. Fecal implants. Scientific medicine. Fecal implants. I tell you, this Panchagavya that is given to the mother as part of our ceremony when she's pregnant, the whole floor of the house and the surroundings would have the cow dung in it as the baby crawls around, letting all those natural prebiotics and probiotics come into the system. We celebrated Krishna Jayanti yesterday. What did Krishna always like? Butter, ghee, milk, curd. All of these are prebiotic, probiotics. This is what the children had. There was a procedure. Infancy and childhood, all the toxic residues that are happening. And then by the time you come into adulthood, celiac diseases, depression, metabolic syndrome, allergies, cancer, inflammatory bowel disorder. Where did it all start? Prenatal, antenatal. And this is why Garbha Sanskar, yoga as part of prenatal, antenatal efforts is such a beautiful place for this same thing to happen. Changing our mindset, changing our diet, changing our lifestyle for the sake of humanity itself. And the gut-brain axis, where is it coming down through? Limbic system. Again, no guess, no prizes for guessing it. How does stress come into your limbic system? What is your limbic system? All of this. Cingulate cortex, fornix, thalamus, stria, mammillary body, septum, amygdala, hippocampus. These are the names of all the components of your limbic system where the stress comes in. What does it do? It comes in. Adrenergic nerve. What are adrenergic nerves? Stress. And where does it come in? Comes into all of this, affecting your microbiota, all those bacteria, altering the microbiota by stress hormone, noradrenaline. Now you want to change noradrenaline? Well, change it to a feel-good hormone. Get the feel-good hormones going. Left nostril breathing, Chandranadi Pranayama. It is the way that you reduce the sympathetic overactivity. Perform the Pranava Pranayama. Perform the Brahmari Pranayama. Perform all those Jnana Yoga relaxation kriyas. Listen to some music. Perform some chanting. And suddenly you have altered this whole equation. From a pathogenic destination, you have gone to a salutogenic destination. A paradigm shift from pathogenesis to salutogenesis occurs. And then you realize that you can work through this vagus nerve activation. How can you activate the vagus? Deep breathing, Sukha Pranayama, Sukha Purvaka Pranayama. I was having a discussion with Madan Mohan sir, my yoga research mentor, because we were trying to understand Kapalbhati and Bhastrika further and how this diaphragmatic action, the abdominal compression and relaxation will start to affect the vagus, and how this effect of the vagus will bring in a salutogenic aspect of this whole pathway, the brain gut discussion changes. And what could be a better practice than Viparita Karani? What has happened in Viparita Karani? The sun has come. Normally what is happening? The sun is down, solar plexus is down, the moon is up, the brain is up. And what is happening in Viparita Karani? The sun is coming down, the moon is going up. You are reversing the whole flow from that pathogenic pathway to salutogenic pathway. One of the best practices for the whole digestive system, Viparita Karani. The way your diaphragm has to work, the way your intestines have to work, you change the whole pressure volume relationships. And you have just changed the way your gut and your brain are talking. Swamiji used to say that we have a brain which is lunar, the moon. We have the solar plexus, the solar brain. And at the base of the spine, the earth brain. He said all of those three have to be communicating and working together in harmony if you are to be healthy. But we have become lunar brain dominant. This is working all the time. And that is why the solar plexus, how do you work on the solar plexus? Well, one of the best things is, of course, ha. The moment you make that explosive sound, ha, you are working on this region. Ha, 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 ha. And you've automatically started to enhance the salutogenic pathway here. The Hakara Kriyas, the Ha is the sound of this region. Placing yourself into the Viparita Karani, and Swamiji has suggested doing some Bastrika in the position also. Doing the breathing with the movement of the legs again. What a beautiful way to really realign the linkage between these two brains, the brain and the gut brain. And starting to create a healthy brain function, healthy status. This is the salutogenic path, normal behavior, cognition, emotion, healthy levels, normal gut microbiota by proper diet, healthy brain function, healthy gut function. And if not, abnormal brain function, abnormal gut function, stress, disease, altered levels of all of this happening. We can change the whole paradigm, turn it upside down from an unhealthy paradigm to a healthy paradigm, Viparita Karani, of the paradigm itself, turning it upside down. We have been talking of the human microbiome. So what is it? It is a community of native bacteria that live in and on the human body. There are 10 times more bacterial cells in and on the human body than human cells. The human cells are outnumbered 1 to 10. Different bacteria are found at different body sites performing different functions. And the microbiome plays a major role in human health and disease. And it is an understudied diagnostic and therapeutic target. I often used to say that if there are 10 times more microbial cells than human cells, and we call them, we say we are the host and they are the parasite, I start to wonder. Sometimes I think that, it's the bacteria are just keeping us so that they have something to feed on. It's another way to think of the human being, that we are just the food. Annamaya Kosha, anybody? Annamaya Kosha? When we talk of the Annamaya Kosha, this is what they are all feeding on. I've often had, a few nightmares about this. Thinking about this a bit too much, you can have some nightmares if you're not careful. And this is a very beautiful one. The visible organs, about 23,000 genes. The invisible microbiota, 9 million genes. Compare 23,000 genes and 9 million genes. Seriously, it's astonishing that it's only in the last decade or so this has really come into being. The importance of having a healthy relationship with the microbiome. And where do they live? Where? Nose, mouth, lungs, stomach, colon, sexual organs, skin. Major component is stomach and colon. Because in the stomach, they prevent the gastric complications. And in the colon, they help the digestion of complex carbohydrates. They are in the mouth. to assist digestion, ward off the pathogens. And they are fortifying the immune system. And it depends on the genetics, your environment, your diet, your lifestyle, your hormones, and the industry, and what's going on. Okay, you will say genetics I cannot change. Yes, okay, fine. You cannot change your genetics. Okay, no issue. I'll give that to you. What about the rest? You can change every one of the rest. You can change every one of the rest. So no use cribbing about your genetics. When you can change the rest of it, you can change what you eat, you can change the way you think, you can change the way you live, you can change what you put into you, what you don't put into you, and then you alter the microbiota. And this is why I think mindful living is so important when this topic comes up. Now, another point I wanted to bring out is the digestive system is connected to every other system. And I mentioned this, but I just want to put it out. Because, we say the digestive system ingests, digests, and absorbs the nutrients, but it also works with the skin. Okay, for vitamin D. Works with the bones, because the bones are needed. The muscular systems are related. The nervous system is related. The endocrine system is related. The cardiovascular system. The lymphatic system. The lymphatic is very much part of it, because the biggest amount of lymphatics are basically in your abdomen. This is the region that has a huge amount of lymphatics. So when you talk of the immune system and lymphatics, the abdomen is a very important place. The respiratory, the urinary, and the reproductive. Every system is interconnected. And this is why when we talk about digestive health or yoga and digestion, it's not just yoga and digestion, it is every aspect of your functioning as a healthy human being. Now, going back to the liver, you remember we talked about the second part of the duodenum? You remember that? Now, what happens is if we don't take care of the liver, a healthy liver, look what it looks like, starts to become fatty. Why does it become fatty? Well, the word itself tells you excess fat in the diet and, of course, overloading. One of the biggest reasons this happens is alcohol. I told you alcohol, zero nutrition, empty calories, and the person is full, and you end up with this. And then what happens if you're not careful? It starts to go into fibrosis, cirrhosis, finally cancer. And I cannot tell you how many people in this part of the world are caught in this. One of the worst things that ever happened in this part of the world is the introduction of alcohol to many of the communities. Communities which may have had their own local intoxicants, which the body could tolerate. Okay. An Indian villager, the local intoxicant that comes off our palm tree, his body was able to deal with it. Okay. But not the alcohol that has been brought in, which is an artificial creation, and his body doesn't know what to do with it, and he goes down this pathway. People say, oh yes, even in old times, Indians had alcohol. They call it somabana and all that. Yes, intoxicants were there, but the intoxicants were intoxicants that the body could deal with, not the ones that would kill you in this way. And I tell you, we have seen so many people, productive lives spoiled in this part of the world by alcohol. And one of the works that Dr. Balaji does is in one of the local de-addiction centers, and horror stories we have. Horror stories. I cannot tell you the horror stories we have because of it. And trying to bring yoga into it, to reduce the craving, to help people have a better sense of self-care, care for the society. Not always easy. But we are doing our part here because we have just seen the lives that have been destroyed by it. And the liver is a very, very important part that gets destroyed. Now, I just wanted to introduce this concept to you with relation to the digestive system, that we talk of the 6 tastes when we talk about the taste in Indian culture. So we have the salty, the pungent, the sour, the bitter, the sweet, and the astringent. And these are again connected to the elements. For example, the salty taste is related to water and fire. Pungent is fire and air. Sour is earth and fire. Bitter is air and space. That is Akash. Sweet is earth and water. Astringent is air and earth. So you have the relationship of the rasa, the 6 tastes, with the elements, the Panchamahabhuta, earth, water, fire, air, and ether. This has been very much part of the Indian approach to diet. So when we talk about the diet, and we talk about the sweet, sour, salty, pungent, bitter, and astringent, and the elements that are there, this immediately brings you to the concept shared by Ayurveda and Yoga, which is of the Vata, Pitta, Kapha. And so in the Vata, Pitta, Kapha, you can see how, if I were to take the sweet is primarily Kapha. Okay, you can see the arrow going up here. Sweet is Kapha and reduced Vata and Pitta. So what is happening is, the more the sweet is being taken, basically that's all fast food and processed food, what you're ending up with is more of Kapha coming into the person. I hope you understand that link. Whereas when you go to sour, it has Pitta and Kapha both working together. When you come to salty, Pitta and Kapha. When you come to pungent, you will then have the Vata and Pitta. This is where the, somebody who has a Kapha problem, we have what is called Patya, Apatya. Patya and Apatya means the food that is to be taken and the food that is not to be taken. That which is pro and that which is anti. So someone who is having diabetes, you don't want to give them the sweet here because the Kapha is going to go up. You would want to give them more of the pungent, bitter, and astringent. These 3, 2 which are having less of Kapha. Can you see the last 3 are less Kapha? Similarly, someone who has more of a Vata, so a Vata person, you don't want to give pungent, bitter, and astringent because they will increase the Vata. You want to give them sweet, sour, and salty to decrease the Vata. This is the Patya, Apatya concept of diet. And very much part of Indian systems of healing have been this type of dietary modification. Again, linked to the elements. And here you have a concept of the Agni, the digestive fires. That the Vishama Agni, which is related to the Vata dosha, this we would call it, in yoga, we would call it Kujiranatvam. You have the Tikshna, which is the hypermetabolic one, which we would call Ajiranatvam. Manda Agni, which is more the Kapha, which is hypo, we would call it Ajiranatvam. And the state of health is what we will call Sama Agni, where there is an equilibrium of the doshas, it's balanced, and what we will call Samatvam. So here you start to find that these correlations of the Agni, which is an Ayurvedic concept primarily, we are correlating it with the dosha, correlating with the metabolic activity, and what the yogic concept would be here. And once you correlate it this way, it becomes much easier to then see what are the practices the person needs. Someone who has a Manda Agni, you want to activate because there is more of Kapha. So you want to give more of activation to that person. Somebody who has Vishama and Tikshna Agni, you don't want activation there. Okay. Manda Agni, you want to activate the fire. In Tikshna Agni, it is already heavy fire. You don't want to give more fire. You want to cool it down. So this is where the practices then come in, depending on what type of Agni, what type of the yogic concept, as I said, is Kujiranatvam, which means sort of, running every place all the time. Atijiranam, which is hyper, Ajiranam, which is hypo, and the goal is Samatvam, Sama. Sama Agnischa Samadhatu. All we want. Samadosha, Sama Agnischa Samadhatu, Malakriya. That is the concept of health. All should be in balance, equilibrium. Now, These Agnis can also be correlated with mental and emotional imbalances, not just at the food level, not just at the level of the food. So Vishama Agni, what will happen? The person is very nervous. There's anxiety, there's fear, there's loneliness, there's isolation. Tiksha Agni, there's anger, hatred, jealousy, envy. They are burning themselves out. And Manda Agni, depression, attachment, grief, greed, and possessiveness. So you can find between these Agnis, not just the metabolic activity, but also mental and emotional imbalances. So then how do you manage it? Vishama Agni. Vishama means it is naughty. Vishama, you can use the word Vishama as naughty. When we talk of Krishna as a young child, we say Vishamakara Kannan. He is a very naughty, always doing some mischief. So what do you need to do when the Agni is like that? You have to pacify the Vata. The Vata is going every place. So pacifying the Vata through lifestyle and diet. Bring a regularity of routine meals and dinacharya. Dinacharya is how you set up your whole day. What are your activities for the whole day? Keep a regularity. Tiksha Agni. Now it is more Pitta. So Pitta pacifying lifestyle and diet. Avoid the overstimulation. Manda Agni is more Kapha. So how do you reduce the Kapha? How do you bring down the Kapha? Pacify the Kapha and enhance the Vata and the Pitta especially. Exertional physical activities to decrease Kapha. Having more spicy and stimulating foods is what would be suggested there. Now with this in mind, a few thoughts from on the diet. Now Swamiji has given a lot about this in the step-by-step. Anandi has done a lot of good work for us in that. But at the same time, a few general concepts. One should eat to live, not live to eat. The concept of mitahara, moderation, given by the Bhagavad Gita. The sattvika food, fresh, uncooked. Rajasika, spicy, stimulating. Tamasika, old, processed. So the sattvika diet includes adequate hydration, freshly cooked food, uncooked salad, sprouts and fruits, high fiber, nutritive greens, and soups and juices for the mineral balance. This is how a sattvika diet could be taken forward. Again, a few more concepts are given when we talk about this. And the concepts given are a yogi should fill the stomach with half of food, a quarter of it for water, and a quarter is left empty for the divine. Hydration for efficient functioning of all cells. And very important to remember, food consumed in anger or a disturbed mind is basically poison. It doesn't matter if it is sattvic food or not. Even sattvic food taken when you are in a disturbed mindset can become poisonous. So you say, oh, I ate something healthy, but what was your mental state? Even the healthy food has become unhealthy. We should look at all the constituents and balance it, a good, clean environment. Eat according to hunger, not for taste. Slow and adequate chewing with mindfulness, and eating in good company and sharing. These are again very important aspects. When we talk about the doshas and the food, anti-vata, you want to reduce the vata, warm, heavy fruits, but avoid the beans. Beans are aggravating the vata. Anti-pitta, cool, raw fruits. Avoid the oils and spices for pitta. And anti-kapha, dry food, more of spices. Avoid the fruits. So somebody who's predominantly kapha, you say, oh, apples are good for you, oranges are good, all that is good for you. But well, maybe hold back a bit on that from this point of view. There are other points of view also. Swami Danda, who founded Kaivalyadhama, they are going to be celebrating the 100th year soon. And his birthday was celebrated yesterday. It's very, it was interesting. Yesterday we had his birthday, we had Lord Krishna's birthday, and then we also had Dr. Meena's birthday. 3 people we were celebrating yesterday. It doesn't always come together that way. He suggested a lacto-vegetarian diet with cereals but less pulses. Now we have to put into context, he lived his work was primarily between the 20s and the 60s. 1920s and 60s is where his primary work was. So there may be other conditions that come up later. He has said that egg is high in protein, not good for yoga. He has suggested that high protein may not be good for yoga. He has suggested a low protein diet. As he says, there's increased sympathetic drive, and that high protein may actually not work with it well. Low salt or salt-free diet, no stimulant or irritating items. But at the same time, we have to understand, he also has mentioned that it is unwise to dogmatize. Because, an Eskimo, of course, nowadays we have used the term Inuit, on a vegetarian diet, now that doesn't make sense at all. So you have to look at the cultural context, you have to look at society, you have to look at the family. Dogmatization, recently, I have been getting a lot of videos from an activist in India who is a vegan activist. And I was just thinking, here's a person who's, really very strongly promoting veganism, but he doesn't realize how violent he is at times with the way he's expressing it and the way he's talking to other people. I'm like, you are talking of ahimsa, but the violence in your communication is so strong. I think we have to be very careful that it's a tightrope you have to walk when it comes to this. Swamiji has talked about this in different ways, and he also, like Kuvalananda, has suggested a lacto-vegetarian diet, 40% raw fresh foods, seasonal foods. Swamiji gave a lot of emphasis to local seasonal food. That was a very strong aspect he always stressed on. 60% cooked food, whole grain, he suggested. Don't overcook the food because you lose the nutrition. Save the water for sambar, soups, and sauces. Sauces, there should be sauces. Skin of the vegetables and fruits is alkaline. Swamiji, and this is why people are always surprised when I eat most of my fruit with the skin. And I say, because Swamiji told me the skin is the alkaline part of the fruit, and I want to have that benefit and not lose it. Of course, my friends remind me sometimes there are more pesticides in the skin than it is alkaline. So it's a thin line again. Polyunsaturated oils, avoiding the refined, unnatural produced items, eat to satisfy hunger and not psychological disturbances. Swamiji has talked about this long before people have been talking about the emotional overeating and binging because of emotional volatility. Beware of bad habits and appetite. Don't misuse salt or spices. Swamiji used to always talk about people who, the moment food was put in front of them, would take out the salt and start putting it on the food without even tasting the food. They have not even tasted the food, whether it needs salt or not, but they've already put a load of salt on it. He used to say, be careful of this. First eat the food, see whether it needs more salt or not, and then add the salt. It's always good to cook with less salt and then add if required, rather than try to do the reduced. And again, balance your calorie needs with adequate vitamins and minerals. Vitamins and minerals are very essential for good health. Another concept Swamiji has given us in this regard is the power in a seed, and talking about the biogenic. Recently, I've talked about this in a few classes. The sprouting of seeds, grains, pulses, peas, and beans, and other fruit pit items. Swamiji has suggested that they are all biogenic when you sprout them. Bioactive are the life-sustaining foods that are all the unprocessed fruits and vegetables. Please note the word unprocessed fruits and vegetables, not processed. Biocidic, life and health destroying foods in the process of rot and decay. Animal flesh, fish and fowl and byproducts. In modern times, preservatives, chemical additives, extenders, adulterants, colorings and flavors. And biostatic, all the overcooked, long-stored food, including all types of frozen and tinned food, and the much so-called dried or dehydrated food. So this, we were talking about this recently, and I remember Padma had made a very nice illustration I had shared recently from, I think it was my Satsanga series, the 999 Satsanga series. And this, I just found the slide the other day and I thought it's worth sharing with all of you. The sattvic food, What is the sattvic food? Well, it is increasing the life, purity, strength, health, joy. Usually it is fresh and simple that gives energy. Rajasika are usually the bitter, sour, and saline. They may be very hot, pungent, dry, and burning, and they may be complex cooked food that can overstimulate. Tamasic, stale, tasteless, putrid, rotten, and impure, lacking nutrients. And these type of foods create anger and what they classify as impure thoughts. I think this word impure thoughts, I would not really like to keep it, but I would say maybe thoughts that would lead us towards a pathogenic direction. Let's put it that way. Which would pull us down from where we are and worsen situations. Now, a very beautiful concept comes up when we eat. One of the concepts is eating with our hands. And most of the time, this has been a big issue when we travel, because I have been brought up totally eating with my hands. And so to go to Western countries and have all these cutlery items in front of you, and then, the way you keep the knife and the fork and the spoon and which hand you hold it, oh my God, I go crazy with all of this, which is why, I'm like, get back home soon where you can just use your hands and eat. Because all the 5 elements are found in our fingers: the fire, the water, the earth, the air, and the space. They're all found there. The middle finger is space. So basically, when you're using the middle finger, you're telling people to get off the planet and go into space. That's another way to say you're giving them the finger. But anyway, what happens is when you eat with your hands and you hold the food, you bring all the 5 fingers together. And this becomes a mudra, which is called the Samana Mudra, that activates this digestive fire. You remember I said the Samana Vayu, the Jatara Agni, it is the second part of the duodenum. So you're eating your food and you are already sending a neuromuscular message by the Samana Mudra to your duodenum that the food is coming. So please get ready and do your job properly. And let all the 5 elements that are part of your food be absorbed and nourish all the 5 elements within you. This is how it comes in. Now, this will never happen if you use a spoon. I'm sorry, but it just doesn't happen. It's as simple as that. Again, Swamiji's warning: satisfy your hunger, but not psychological disturbances. Another good idea: Bhajvasana after every meal to get your digestion normal. And you can see a very nice, beautiful image of Vijaya. I thought I saw Vijaya here someplace today, but a very beautiful image when we still had a beach outside the ashram. All of this is under the water right now. This beach doesn't exist. It's under the water. There was a hut out there which we use for all our video shoots. So Vajrasana is an excellent practice. Another quiz question is always, which is the only asana you should do after food? And well, Vajrasana is the answer. It's always a good quiz question. Another thing you can do is, if you want to lie down with your right side dominant. And you see a nice image of my dear Lata there, and lying with the right side dominant. When the right side is dominant, your right nostril flow will be activated. This will speed up your metabolic activity and help you digest better. So it is suggested that if after your food you need to lie down for any reason, lie down on your left with the right side up. This is an excellent practice. Also, what you will find is that the food that goes into your stomach will have a chance to mix with the acids much better. So it will be mixing better, so that then the resultant process can be better in this. The 6 cleansing practices, Dauti, Basti, Neti, Trataka, Nauli, and Kapalbhati. 3 of them, as I said, Dauti, Basti, and Nauli. 3 of them are working on your digestive system. And another very good practice, especially if there is Manda Agni and the digestion is not good, is the Agni Sara, which works on this Jatara Agni. It is the rapid flapping of the abdominal wall on the out breath. So I just want to stress here that you breathe out, and then it is a flapping of the abdominal wall on the held out breath. So people often get confused. What is the difference between this and Kapalbhati? In Kapalbhati, every flap has an out breath. So every time you are flapping, there's an out breath, out breath, out breath, out breath, out breath. Here it is out and then flap, 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 flap. And then when you're ready, you release and breathe in. So it is on a out breath where your diaphragm has come up. See, when you breathe out, your diaphragm comes up. Remember that? So the diaphragm comes up when you breathe out, and in that, now you are flapping. So your diaphragm has been taken out of the way. It's like you're taking the diaphragm out of the equation, and you're working on the abdominal region, especially that second part of duodenum, Jata Agni, for the Samana Vayu, an excellent practice, Agni Sara. Surya Namaskar, always useful, and a very beautiful one from Asami, one of our beautiful Japanese students who settled in Australia. I'm hoping to hear back from her. Now and then I hear from her, but it would be nice. Amazing model. She modeled for about 500 asanas at one time when I was going to redo the step-by-step with new images. Practices like, as you can see, Asami here in our Ardha Matsendra, an excellent practice. Jnana Sundari in the Jata Parivrata, an excellent practice to work on that Jata Agni, the Trikonasana, and of course, your Ardha Kati or Kati Chakra, as different people call it. The Pavana Mukta series, Sita Devi from France, who's busy tending to all her donkeys in France. She loves her donkeys a lot. Beautiful practice with the Pavana Mukta that can be done. Renuka doing the Pavana Mukta in the sitting. So the Pavana Mukta can be done lying down. You can also do it in the sitting, another beautiful practice to help with the whole digestive system. And a very beautiful series called the Danda Kriya, which is done, it's supposed to be for the spine, but also very good for the whole digestive system. And the Malla Kriya, where we breathe in, and as we breathe out, we come into the squat. Here, this is an excellent practice to work on the whole digestive system and harmonize it. Then the practices like the Pada Uttanas, then the Bhujanga, and then, as I said, the Sarvanga with the Janu Sirasa. Swamiji has given these in some of the lessons. I believe it was in module 2. We have looked at these lessons from the Sarvanga with the single knee to the forehead and the double knee to the forehead. Amazing practices really to work on the digestive system. From the Pranayama side, the Vibhaga, Pranava, Bastrika, Surya Nadi, right nostril breathing if you want to activate your metabolic activities. The Shitali Sitkari if you want to reduce appetite, they are cooling. And Savitri for the relaxation in Shavasana. So we are seeing here Devasana doing the Surya Nadi, the Kukriya, and a very beautiful practice for the digestive system, where you are doing the canine breathing. And then you have the Shitali and the Sadanta, which are also very much part, especially if there's a lot of Pitta. The Shitali, Sitkari, Sadanta are very good if there's a lot of Pitta. So people who have acid peptic disease, hiatus hernia, people who have ulcers, inflammatory bowel disease, you want to cool down the Pitta, the Shitali, Sitkari, and the Sadanta are very good for that. If you want to activate it, of course, you have the Kriyas, including Shankar. And if you need relaxation, of course, the practices can be used, depending on the Kaya Kriya, the Makara, and the Shavasana. And this Samana Vayu and the digestive energies are very much related to the Manipura Chakra. So the Manipura Chakra, when you want to contemplate it, you can do a Mandala Dharana, which is contemplating the shape of a downward pointing bright red triangle. And contemplating this becomes a way for you to attune to the energies of the Manipura. And you can use the Vija Mantra, which is the Rang. The Rang is the Vija Mantra that works on this. So the Rang Vija Mantra, as a Vija Mantra sadhana, along with a focus on the Mandala Dharana of the Tejo Mandala, that is the fire symbol of the mandala that we are using, works on the Manipura Chakra, which is very much the digestive system. Of course, Swamiji's message is yoga is the science and art of right useness of the body, emotions, and mind. How to use our digestive system as it is meant to be used, and not abuse it, disuse it, or put it into one of those states where then it goes into disuse atrophy. So I'm just going to stop with this here and come to some of the questions in the chat box. I wanted to share these things, but there's a lot of stuff here. So I just want to make sure I get through it, and then I may show you a few more slides of a few related things. So there was a question about Pitta and acidity. Yes, I would say Pitta and acidity can be taken in a similar way. I'm not going to say that Pitta is acid, because Pitta can also be the bile. So it is that which is heating, that which is going to burn things up. And there's a question about bulimia. Definitely these are issues that one has to be very careful when doing some of the shat karmas, the cleansing practices, because there are the inherent tendencies for anorexia nervosa, bulimia, and others. One would have to be careful that they are not bringing to force any of the latent tendencies. And does the acid in the stomach play any role? Not really. Acid is not really playing a major role. It is more about activating the other enzymes and keeping the stomach clean of unnecessary pathogens. So I would say it's one of your defense systems that you eat food. Many of the bugs get killed off in the acid of the stomach also. So it is only those who can escape that then get into the rest of the bowl. Okay. The peristaltic movement is happening in different ways. You have cyclic peristalsis. So what happens is the movement in a cyclic manner and a linear manner. So this depends on the muscles in the small intestine especially. So you have muscles that are going in a straight line, muscles that are circular. So the circular muscles, what happens? One contracts, pushes the food, then the next contracts, pushes. So you have this concentric push, 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 push. But then you also have the whole bowl moving together. So the peristaltic movements are helping the movement from mouth to anus. That is the whole goal of peristalsis. And you have to make sure it's not hyperperistalsis, because then you start to have the rumbling in your stomach. We hear those rumbling. I have that when I eat a lot of bread. And I remember whenever I go, especially to the UK, and I'm teaching there, everything is so quiet. In India, we have so much noise that, you never hear any of your internal body sounds. There's so much more to hear. But I'm sitting in the UK in this retreat and leading relaxation, in the mid-morning. And, I hear all this rumbling in my stomach. And I'm like, I hope the rest of the class is not hearing all this rumbling. And it's usually the bread I eat in the morning. It's quite interesting that the only time I hear rumbling in my stomach is when I'm in the UK. So one has to always think about that. There's a question about practicing Shankar. I would say it requires its own class, but it consists of 4 practices that are done in a specific sequence, along with drinking warm saline. So warm saline is taken in, and then these practices are done to make sure that there's a forceful movement of the water. So it's not just the water going from your mouth to the anus, but it's forceful. And when you actually come to the point where you have to go to the toilet, I often tell people, be careful, you will start to levitate, because the water coming out the other end is often like a jet. And you will start to actually fly up. It can be so forceful. And that is good, because that is the jet flow that cleans away all the stuck up particles and the encrustations that are taking up space, which otherwise you would use for absorption. So especially between the villi, there's a lot of those villi are glued together by the adhesions. So the forceful water just like breaks those adhesions through, and it's quite an amazing practice. People say, then what's the difference between Shankar and having diarrhea? Well, in diarrhea, you don't know why it is there. You don't know when it will stop. So there's a lot of stress. In Shankar, you know what you are doing and that there's a process. So there's no stress. So Shankar is diarrhea without stress. Okay, think about it that way. And at the end, people are like, will it stop? I say it will stop. And if it doesn't stop, just lie against the wall with your legs up. And after a few minutes, it will automatically stop. Because whenever you want to stop a bowel movement, lie down with your legs up against the wall. And the natural nervous response is that you will be sent into a sort of blocking the expulsion. How often should we do Shankar? I would suggest not more than twice a year. That is my suggestion, because too much of Shankar can alter the microbial flora that we have been talking about. So we don't want to push these guys out. They are good guys. They are our friends. Yes, rotten egg sulfide. Yes, we got that. And Shankar, 4 times a year, twice a year, start once a year. Yes, Sri Devi has given a good logical answer there. My suggestion is that Shankar should always be done under proper supervision. Because often I find that people make mistake with the very first practice. And if you don't do the first practice properly, instead of opening your pyloric sphincter, you close it, and then all the water you drink will be vomited out. It will not go through into the intestines. So one of the commonest issues students have is that after drinking 10, 12 glasses of water, they start to vomit it. It doesn't come out. It doesn't go through, because by using the mudra is you have to open the pyloric sphincter. There's a specific gesture to open it. People start to close it. This closes it. This opens it. And these are very specific. So I'll just leave it at that. I will see if I can share a file on it at some point. But whenever, I have not taught Shankar on tour till now. So the only time I've led it is in the ashram, because I respect that practice a bit too much. Okay, so we have a few answers there. Okay, yes. Okay, okay. Shankar. Okay, now there's a question about Khichdi 2 hours after Shankar. Now the Satyananda tradition, they do the Shankar and immediately have the Khichdi, because they don't want to keep the stomach empty and they want to get back to normal. The practice being done in this tradition is part of a 5-day sadhana. So the context is very different. So it is done as part of a sadhana where you are fruit for the first day, 3 days of water fast, and then fruit, so that you are giving a complete rest to the digestive system. You are cleaning it and giving a rest to the digestive system. So there's a big difference in the approach here. But if you are leading a normal life and have to go to work and all, what is called a Lagu Shankar Prakshalana, which is a shorter version, and taking some ghee rice or khichdi a couple of hours later is acceptable in that type of situation. But in the ashram situation, we do it with a very specific purpose of a complete clean out. And on the 4th day, when they do the enema and you see the stuff coming out, you'll be like, thank God I didn't have my khichdi, because I had added to that stuff inside. You really see what comes out. It's astonishing. All sort of stuff comes out, and you are like, where was that hiding? Okay. There's a question about the slides. Well, most of these slides I have, they're not really all mine. They are borrowed with the credit. So what I will do is I'll be sharing it and share the link for all of you, because as I always say, don't hold on to anything. It's not yours. So keep sharing. Yes. And there's a question here about contraindications. Of course, one would have to be careful, because nowadays people have so many issues that you want to really make sure that they don't. I think the worst one I would always look at is a chronic kidney issue. If somebody has a chronic kidney issue, I would not do Shankar. I'm just giving you like a definitely no, because if your kidneys are already damaged, Shankar with the salt and the forceful amount of water, you could end up with water intoxication, and issues could be there. So chronic kidney disease, I would definitely be very careful. Severe cardiac issues, peptic ulcers, high blood pressure, pregnancy. Pregnancy, of course, we don't want to stimulate any contractions, because when you stimulate the contractions in Shankar, it may start the contractions in the uterus before the person is ready for delivery. So pregnant ladies, of course, it makes sense not to do it. I would definitely go for that. Now, when it comes to high blood pressure, it would depend on how high the blood pressure is. So I would again say it depends on the physical condition of the person, the magnitude of the blood pressure, whether it is controlled on medicine or not, other factors. So I would not directly say no. And again, peptic ulcers also, depending on how severe the peptic ulcer is, that is where I would put that. So I would say this is why it needs supervision. I never suggest that it should be done, just like a general thing. I heard of someone who wanted to have a Shankar camp for 500 people at the same time. And I was like, I hope you have 500 toilets there, because the biggest issue with Shankar and the ashram is finding the toilet when you have to go. Okay, so it is you really have to go, and you're busy climbing on other people's back if you're not careful and there are not enough toilets. So make sure you have your own personally named toilet, because I tell you, when you have to go, you have to go. Okay, with Shankar, there's no holding in. Okay, so I think one of the most important things in the ashram is people should know where their respective designated toilet is once they start to go, because it used to be done individually, and then in the last few years we started doing it as a team. So I would, before I went to work, I would in the morning lead everybody through the starting part and take them through it, and then the mentors who were there would help them finish it off. So one really have to go carefully there. And a question about GERD, that is the gastroesophageal reflex. Anti-pitta diet is the diet that is recommended. Anti-pitta diet along with the cooling pranayamas. This is basically the most important. And more important than that, deal with the stress the person has. Stress will aggravate it. So I think yoga as an antidote to stress is a very important component in all digestive issues, because all digestive issues have a psychosomatic component. And if you don't address the stress, normally we are just taking an antacid or, H2 blocker. We are taking these type of medications. That's not enough. You have to deal with what's happening up here. Because if you're having an ulcer, it means something is eating you. You have to ask yourself the question, what is eating you? And often it's your own negative limbic system. Remember, limbic system in the brain and the gut microbiome, that same thing. So you have to attenuate the limbic system. How do you attenuate the limbic system? Pranayama. Because pranayama shifts you from the limbic system and its relationship with the normal breathing to your cortical system, the prefrontal cortex. So you shift, the moment that shift occurs, your limbic system is attenuated. Om Japa is a very good way to attenuate your limbic system. Any form of Japa, whatever Japa you want to do, you want to chant Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, do it. You want to say Ave Maria, okay, Hail Jesus, whatever you want. You want to say Hail yourself, okay, fine, do it, and you'll have a hailstorm on your head. But you do whatever you want. But the Japa is a very important component to attenuate the limbic system. And so important. First thing, having cough. See, cough basically kapha. So anti-kapha is avoid fruits and take more of the spices. Especially turmeric is very good. Then the ginger is very good. Lemon in warm water in the morning is a good idea for that. And again, somebody having a lot of kapha, if they can do the Vaman Dauti, it is a very good practice. Dr. Bole and others at Kaivaladama did a lot of work in that. They did a lot of work in that, because the Dauti and the Vaman Dauti, especially Kunjal, is a very good practice to relieve excess kapha. Now, the only thing is, as I said, don't overdo it. And the danger is somebody who has OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, starting to Vaman Dauti and ending up with a massive alteration in the gastric acidity. So, don't overdo it. Again, moderation, yuktahara viharasya, moderation, moderation, moderation. And okay. Lipomatosis, Radu. I really don't know what that is. So I look it up and get back to you. I always make it very clear. If I don't know something, I'll say I don't know it. Look it up and give it to you. I will never try to act smarter than I am. Not that I am smart, but I'll never try to act smarter than I am. I'll keep it that way. And okay, future sessions on female hormonal health and ADHD. I think a lot of demand is coming up for some yoga therapy sessions online. I have a lot of reservations with yoga therapy online, but I think it may happen. First, let me get through Divya's yoga primer of yoga theory. So many people misread primer of yoga theory as primer of yoga therapy. I'm like, no, it's primer of yoga theory. But many people have misread that. But there will be one chapter in my book is on yoga therapy, but it's only going to be one of the lessons of the 15. Fasting and the microbiome. I think this is a beautiful question from Gitan. When we first had the lockdown during the pandemic, one of the first things that came into the news was how much better the planet was. How much better the planet was because we were not traveling around, we were not messing with nature, that, the waters were purer, the fish was swimming, there were more fish, the birds were free, the animals were free, things were much better when we were not involved. I think I would say the same thing about fasting. When you give yourself a fast and you know that you are fasting, so see, starvation, there's a lot of stress. And so you go into ketosis. Starvation, you go into ketosis. Fasting, you should not go into ketosis because there's no stress. Stress is the difference between going into ketosis or not. So if you are fasting and you know what you are doing, what happens is that you are not going to be going into stress. You are going to be calm about it. The one thing our students always say in the ashram is when they're fasting, they find they have so much more time. The amount of time we spend eating is actually astronomical. And in the ashram, they say when we are, those 5 days of the sadhana, they're like, oh my God, we were able to do so much more. Suddenly we seem to have so much time. So if you can have that time, use it for a better use and have that calmness of mind, I think that you would end up with a much better microbiome as a result of fasting. Because you've given them a chance to just be themselves. Instead of interfering by putting whatever we put into our mouth and it comes through. So I think sometimes, taking a step back, we always think, oh, if I'm not there, the world will collapse. Well, the world may actually be a better place if we are not there, okay? I think we need to acknowledge that because our ego always thinks the world will collapse if we are not there, that we are at last holding up the planet. No, 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 no. So similarly, yes, Gitan, thanks for that because we always think prebiotics, probiotics, fermented foods. The big craze is this. What is that kombucha, whatever they have, that drink, fermented drinks and all. I'm like, South Indian diet is fermented diet. Idli, vada, dosa, it's all fermented. And the curd, the lassi, fermented. It was part of our diet. And then we were told, no, 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 this is not good diet. We will give you the diet. As I often say, people, oh my God, I'm tired of these people who try to give people civilization, culture, religion, and now want to give us history also. These people who want to tell us what Indian history is and the history of yoga. Seriously, I just love these people so much. I wish the best for them because it's just so funny, so funny. When you look at it, it's so absurd. People came to civilization where civilization was thriving and said, no, 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 you eat on banana leaves, how uncivilized. Here's a plate. And now you have a plastic plate. The environmental friendly culture where you had a banana leaf. The banana leaf, even if you wash it, will also still have microbes on it. You had a healthy microbe going in. You sat on a floor where there was cow dung was placed. Cow dung! Ah! Use my disinfectant. That cow dung is what kept your biome normal. Walking around on the cow dung floor, the microbes come through your feet. Your hands and feet are going to, touch each other. It's going to be part of your system. This is how the healthy microbe, the baby coming through the mother's birth canal, it is all the microbes that are in the vaginal canal that give the baby a healthy start. Oh, no, it's so dirty. Pull it out through the abdomen. I think sometimes we just have to leave things as they are. Nature is wise. Nature is wise. And if we realize that, so often, all you have to do is stay out of the equation and healing will occur. A common example I give is when somebody has a fracture. We put a plaster of Paris, POP. I say, why do you put a POP? So that it will heal. I'm like, no. Healing will occur even without a POP. The reason you put the POP is so that you will not interfere with the healing. The POP is not helping you heal. The POP is preventing you from interfering with the healing. I think sometimes we have to put full-size POP on people because they interfere so much in their own inherent healing. You need a POP. And I say then the benefit is you can get an autograph from all your friends. But we have mistaken it. We think the POP is healing us. Our POP is not healing. Oh, you put a rod in it and it's healed. No, the rod kept it in place so that nature could heal you. You could heal yourself. But we don't have trust in it. We don't have the patience. Because we don't have the patience, we become a patient. The moment we learn patience, we don't have to be a patient anymore. We'll be a non-patient. We'll be good. Okay. How often Vaman Dauti? Okay, I think we have Vaman Dauti. Okay. Vaman Dauti, initially when you learn it, you may do it a few times a week and all. After that, I don't think you need to do it more than once a week. That is the maximum I would put on it. Twice a month is a good place to be. Initially, I remember when I first started doing it, I think I did it for every day of a week until I got used to it. That is part of the learning process. But once you know how to do it, sometimes I just have to think about it, it will happen. I drink the water, I think about it, it will happen. Because, your body knows what you want. The body knows what you want to do. But when you're learning, you may need to do once a week maximum, especially if kapha is there. A lot of kapha, you may do it 2-3 days continuously to eliminate the kapha. But if there's no kapha, then it may not be needed. So I think kapha dosha, you need it. Kapha dosha is not aggravated, you may not need it. That is another way to look at it. GERD with anxiety. Wow. Work on Chandra Nadi Pranayama. Chandra Nadi Pranayama, left nostril breathing. Start to do Brahmari, a lot of Brahmari and Pranava. The Pranava Pranayama is the best. The I tell you seriously, you will reduce the anxiety like anything. We have seen amazing results with the Pranava and with the GERD and the Shitali Sitkari. Whenever you have Pitta, Shitali Sitkari as anti-Pitta practices. That's a way to look at it. If you don't want to use salt in Shankar, lemon juice can also be used, no doubt about it, especially if people have salt issues of water retention, or people have blood pressure issues. Some people, the salt water, it really puts them off. So then Amma used to say, okay, lemon is fine in it. But as much as possible, salt, not hypertonic. It should be a normal saline. 1% is basically where you want 1 gram for 100 ml. So 10 grams for 1 liter. That is the formula. It's like the saline we use in the hospital. That's what you want. You don't want it to be too much, not like the sea water. If you drink it like sea water, you're going to harm your blood cells in there. The RBCs and all will be affected. So please don't do that. Suggestion for people with too much of belching. Okay, here I just wanted to suggest that one of my friends, Prakash Malse, he's a doctor. He advocates Surya Namaskar as a way to deal with this, because he feels that it helps the wind, the air to move through the digestive system because of the way the neck is positioned and then the bending forward and the movement and all. He has actually advocated Surya Namaskar as a means for aerophagy, for the wind to come through the mouth and go out the anus. A very interesting concept he has given. So I'd give that. what I always suggest is that with this belching, work on the Pavana Mukta. Work on the Pavana Mukta. And another suggestion I will give you is that go into the Sarvanga with the knee to the head, the Janu Sirasa. Try it out and see. This actually would help change the way the diaphragm works a lot, because belching in the diaphragm are a big issue. Sukha Purvaka Pranayama is another way to get control over the diaphragmatic movement and work on belching. Sukha Purvaka. So that is coming. I'm starting to become someone who's now giving you a lot of yoga pati today. One practice, one asana for it. So I have to be careful about it. But just I'm answering questions. When you are looking at a schedule for an individual, you would want to understand many more things. But I don't want to go into that. Abdominal pain related to digestion. It's a good question, and I've had that for the last week. Today I'm much better. I've gone through this myself. And what I realized, it is the Vata. It is basically the Vata. And there's a lot of gas moving around, which is causing this issue. This is why Swamiji, in the last Yoga Life, I published his article dealing with pain and how the Pavana Mukta series, done from standing, sitting, lying down, and upside down, can be very useful for this. So I would say that using the Pavana Mukta to harmonize digestion and relieve pain. That is sort of the answer I would give for that. And lipoma. But lipoma could be any place, Radu, so I'm not really sure what you are meaning there. Lipomas could be any place because it's basically a fatty accumulation that is occurring. High acidity, which makes one cough at night or post meals. See, this post meal acidity is often because that esophageal sphincter, the lower esophageal sphincter, is not working properly. So that is where the issue usually comes with that. And what I would suggest is that doing a bit of Bhajvasana after the meal, and thinking if you can do a bit of the cooling pranayama, Shitali, Siddhkari, at that point in Vajrasana. Just right after the meal, I'm adding a combination of Vajrasana, which is to work on enhancing the blood flow there. But because there's a bit of acidity that is coming up and irritating the lungs and creating an issue, I would say that you should do a bit of the Shitali, Siddhkari. But I think you could try doing the Vaman Dauti, Kunjal Kriya, a few times in the morning and see whether that helps you. I think if in the morning you do the Kunjal, you may find that this may not happen later on in the night. Plastic plate that looks like a banana leaf. Yeah, we have those here also. Okay. And asthma. Okay. Here, see, the thing with asthma, we of course use the Kunjal Kriya, as I said, because the reflexes, I talked about this in my session on the respiratory system a couple of months back, that the the same neuronal pathway works for the esophagus and for the trachea. It's the same pathway. So when you do the Kunjal Kriya, what is happening? You are taking the water into the stomach and bringing it up the esophagus and out. Reverse peristalsis, we call it, reverse peristalsis. This triggers, because the nervous system, the neuronal connections are the same. In the respiratory system, the mucus that is blocked is brought up. So it is basically using the same neuronal pathway to bring the mucus that is blocking in the asthma. That is how the Vaman Dauti is working there. And also I like to say it's like the trachea and the esophagus are hugging each other. If you look at it, you have the trachea and the esophagus are right there. So they're like hugging each other. So when one gets electrocuted, the other also gets electrocuted. So when you do the Vaman Dauti, the water is coming up the esophagus, it will trigger a similar movement upward in the respiratory passages, and the mucus is thrown out. So that is actually one of the ways it does. Can we do Vaman Dauti the day of fasting? nothing wrong in trying it. Okay, I'll put it that way. I'll say nothing wrong in trying it. See how it goes. See how it goes. I won't say it is wrong to do it, but it would. I'm worried a little bit about whether the fasting, if you are doing it in a non-stressed, relaxed fast, it will be okay. But if it's the first time you're fasting and you have done the Vaman Dauti and then you are fasting and you're a bit stressed, how is it going to go? Am I going to feel hungry and all? Well, you could actually put yourself into a problem. So individual to individual, I would say we will go on to that. And okay, Balaji is answered on lipoma. Okay. And okay, fine. I got through all your questions. That's great. So just had wanted to share this because the last couple of lessons, Swamiji has worked a lot on the digestive system, so I felt the need for this. I had talked about activating the vagus nerve by deep breathing. By deep breathing, any form of deep breathing, Sukha Purvaka will work on the vagus nerve for sure. Slow deep breathing at the rate of 6 breaths per minute is the formula to bring your vagus into it. And the pranava, because in the pranava, the lengthening of the exhalation. We have done some work on sinus arrhythmia, and what we found is pranava has the most impact, because if you breathe in for 6 counts, you're breathing out for 18 counts, 1:3. So the more your exhalation is prolonged, the more the vagus is recruited into your mindful control. So prolonging exhalation, and that is where the Sukha Purvaka, Pranava, they are so useful in doing that. And acid reflux, can they do fasting? See, the acid reflux, if it is due to stress, then I would say don't fast. So the thing is that fasting for many people could be stressful. And especially if they're starting it off, and they are not like, I've never done it. What will happen if I miss a meal? Will I faint? If all that is going on, there's going to be so much of stress that then the acid reflux will become more. So this is one of the dangers that is there. But I would say that if one could harmonize, and the best way to fast without stress is let your fast be an offering to some form of divine that you like. Okay, so tie your fast into some sort of vrata. That is where in Indian culture, we fasted on, full moon or new moon, or on the 4th day after the new moon, or the 6th day, or on Saturdays, or some people do a Monday fast for Shiva, Somvar. What we do is that you tie it into some sort of offering to the divine, so that then that stress is not there. It becomes an Ishvara Pranidhana. It becomes an offering to the divine. And so you are not stressed about it. And so then that stress-based acidity can be controlled. Because otherwise, if the person is fasting and stressed out about fasting, they're going to actually end up with more acid. So I would say that as long as non-stressed fasting is done, it should be fine. But what I would recommend actually for someone who has acid reflux, go onto a fruit fast. Do 3 days of just having fruits. That is also a fast. Or fruit juices. That's also a type of fasting. It doesn't have to be a total water fast. This is very important. Don't think that it has to be a total water fast. A fruit fast is also very useful. Just maybe having, things like bananas and apples, maybe a nice fast to do also. So keep that there. And again, another thing in fasting is some people often become a bit dehydrated because they think fasting means having no water. So please make sure you're hydrated when you're fasting. If you need some electrolyte solution, please have some electrolyte solution. It's a very important component of it. Don't harm yourself. Fasting should not be self-harm. Okay, so thank you very much for being with me for this session. And I just felt the need to have this extra session and invite a few others to also join us. Welcoming all of you who have signed up for Divya's sessions on yoga theory. And of course, she'll be introducing it and I'll be doing also quite a bit of the teaching of it. We just felt it's a good way to put all these concepts in one set of lessons to go with the book. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Om. See you all later. Have a wonderful time wherever you are. Be blessed.